Dust floated in the air of the underground chamber, making each breath taste of stone and age. Daniel Cross stood alone under the dim orange lights, his boots echoing on the cracked tiles. In front of him loomed the alien statue, 15 feet tall, made of a dark silver metal that seemed to drink in the light. Its eyes were closed, its face calm, its lips set in a faint, mysterious curve. For 1,000 years, it had stood in this place. The chamber had been discovered decades ago, but no one had been able to move or damage the statue. Every scan failed. Every test came back with impossible results. Some scientists called it an artifact from a lost alien empire. Locals called it cursed. They whispered stories about workers who touched it and later vanished without a trace. Daniel wasn't here for legends. He was here because the excavation project was ending. In 2 days, the government would seal the chamber forever. He had been working 12 hours a day, cataloging artifacts and mapping the underground hallways. Tonight, he stayed late, long after the rest of the team had gone back to camp. The air was colder now, and his breath came out in little white clouds. He leaned against a broken pillar and sipped from a flask. The silence was heavy. His calm crackled with the voice of one of his teammates. "Still down there, Cross?" "Yeah," Daniel said. "Just me and the statue." The voice chuckled. "Ask it out on a date. I heard it likes long walks in ancient ruins." Daniel smirked. "Funny? Better yet," the voice continued, "give it a kiss. You might be the one to wake it up." It was a stupid joke, but Daniel felt a restless energy. Maybe it was the long hours, maybe the strange stillness of the chamber, but the idea clung to him. He took another sip from the flask, stepped closer to the statue, and stared at its closed eyes. "You've been standing here for 1,000 years, he muttered. "What's one kiss?" He laughed at himself, but the sound echoed in the vast space like it didn't belong to him. Slowly, almost mockingly, he stepped up onto the base, his head level with the statue's chin. The metal was smooth and cold under his hand. He hesitated for a second, then leaned in and pressed his lips to its unmoving mouth. The moment his skin touched the metal, the air snapped like a thunderclap. A shock raced through his body, not pain, but a deep vibration, as if the stone beneath them had come alive. The ground shuddered, dust raining from the ceiling. Daniel stumbled back, staring in shock. The statue's lips moved. It was only a fraction, but enough to freeze his blood. The eyelids, sealed for centuries, began to lift. Underneath, light burned, pure silver white, so bright it stabbed into his vision. The entire chamber seemed to glow with it. A voice rolled out, deep and metallic, yet clear as thought inside his skull. "Humanity is doomed." Daniel's knees nearly gave out. "What?" The statue's head moved with a slow, grinding sound, ancient joints waking from 1,000-year rest. The light from its eyes grew hotter, brighter, until shadows vanished from the room. "You have awakened me," it said, each word heavy with power. "And now the end begins." Daniel's heart pounded in his ears. The floor shifted again, this time harder. From somewhere far above, deep booms echoed, like massive doors slamming shut. The temperature dropped sharply, his breath now a thick fog. The statue straightened fully, towering above him. "I slept to delay their return," it said. "But your touch has signaled them. They will come." "Who?" Daniel demanded, stepping back toward the entrance. The statue's glowing gaze followed him. "The Scourge, the ones who erase worlds." A distant rumble shook the chamber again, and tiny fragments of stone rained down. Daniel's calm erupted with static, then a panicked voice. "Cross, you need to get out. Something's happening to the sky." The statue stepped down from its pedestal, each footfall shaking the floor. Daniel stared, unable to decide if he should run or keep listening. The alien's voice thundered in his mind. "You have ended your species' time," it said. "Now they will come for you all." From the tunnel leading to the surface, a strange light flickered, unnatural, shifting colors that didn't belong in nature. Daniel's gut twisted. The air felt heavier, like the chamber was sinking. The statue's eyes narrowed. "You will guide me. You will watch what you have called upon." Daniel's instincts screamed to run, but something in that voice pinned him where he stood. The light from the tunnel grew brighter, casting twisted shadows on the walls. The sound of the earth groaning filled his ears. Far away, somewhere above the city, the first cracks began to split the night sky. Daniel's boots pounded against the stone floor as he ran toward the tunnel, the echo of the statue's heavy steps following close behind. The walls trembled, dust falling in small clouds. His comm crackled again, this time with shouts and static. "What's going on up there?" he yelled into it. No answer, only a piercing hum that made his teeth ache. He reached the end of the tunnel and climbed the stone steps, 2 at a time. When he emerged into the night air, the world above was no longer the same. The sky looked torn. Thin, jagged lines of bright white light split across the darkness, like glass cracking in slow motion. The research camp below the hill was in chaos. People were running between tents, grabbing equipment, shouting orders. One of the guards waved at Daniel, his eyes wide with panic. "Look," he shouted, pointing up. A shape moved across the sky, not a ship, not anything Daniel had ever seen. It was huge, its outline jagged like bone, gliding without sound. As it passed in front of the cracks in the sky, the light bent around it, as if the air itself was warping. Behind Daniel, the statue stepped out into the open, the silver glow from its eyes throwing strange shadows across the ground. Gasps and screams rose from the people who saw it move. "What the hell is that?" someone yelled. The statue ignored them, tilting its head upward. "They come faster than I thought," it said, its voice carrying through the cold night air without effort. "Your signal has brought them from the edge of the void." Daniel turned on it, his chest tight. "What are they? What's happening?" The statue's eyes met his. "The Scourge. Long ago, they burned galaxies clean of life. I was made to hold them back. Your touch broke the seal." A deep vibration rolled through the ground. In the distance, far beyond the camp, a flash lit the horizon. No explosion, no fire, just emptiness. Where there had been a cluster of small hills, there was now a hollow space, like they had never existed at all. Daniel stared, his mind refusing to accept it. Where did it go? "They do not destroy," the statue said slowly. "They erase." Another jagged crack spread across the sky, and with it came a freezing wind. Tents ripped loose from their stakes and tumbled across the dirt. The smell of ozone filled the air. A bright streak dropped from one of the cracks, moving impossibly fast. It hit the ground somewhere beyond the hills with a sound like tearing fabric, and then the distant land simply vanished, erased in a perfect silent circle. People began screaming. Cars roared to life as the crew tried to flee. Some stumbled in panic, tripping over cables and boxes. Daniel grabbed the statue's arm, though it was like gripping solid steel. "If you knew this would happen, tell me how to stop it." The statue lowered its gaze. "You cannot stop it, only slow it. Every world they touch fades from all memory, as if it was never born. Soon, no one will remember Earth, not even your own kind, because there will be no your kind." Another flash erupted to the north, and the ground under Daniel's feet shifted. He staggered, looking toward the city miles away. Lights were going out, not flickering, not dimming, just ceasing to exist. The statue stepped forward, scanning the horizon. "They will come for this place next." Daniel's heart hammered. "Then we leave." "No," the statue said. "If you run, they will follow you. You are the trigger now. They can sense you across the stars." Daniel froze. "Me? Why me?" "Because your life touched mine. My seal was bound to the first living soul that crossed it. Now they see you as the sign of the end." The camp's generator exploded in a shower of sparks, plunging the area into partial darkness. People ran into the night, headlights bouncing wildly as vehicles tore across the dirt. The sound of the wind grew deeper, more like a living breath. Daniel's mind raced. He wanted to scream at the absurdity of it all. He had kissed a lump of metal, and now the world was ending? But the sight of the city's skyline fading into nothing ripped away any sense of disbelief. The statue began walking toward the vehicles. "If you wish to survive, you will guide me. There is a place where they can be delayed, a sanctuary buried in the bones of the mountains, but it will not be easy to reach." Daniel ran to keep up, his breath coming fast in the cold air. "And if we don't make it?" The statue didn't look at him. "Then there will be no one left to remember what was lost." A sudden silence fell over the camp, broken only by the faint sound of the wind. Daniel looked back toward the sky and felt his stomach twist. The cracks in the darkness had widened, spilling light over the land. Through them, more bone-like ships were sliding into view, their shapes blotting out the stars. The statue's voice was calm, almost heavy with regret. "The Scourge has arrived." The bone-white ships slid lower in the sky, their jagged edges catching the strange light from the cracks above. They moved without any sound of engines, as if they were drifting on an invisible current. The air grew heavy, pressing against Daniel's chest, making it harder to breathe. The camp was almost empty now. The last few people were speeding away in trucks, their headlights cutting through clouds of dust. Daniel stood beside the statue, watching the ships descend. Every instinct told him to run, but the memory of the hills disappearing stopped him. Running would mean nothing if the world itself was being erased. One of the ships shifted, its sharp spire-like front turning toward the camp. A long beam of pale light swept across the ground. Wherever it touched, objects flickered and vanished, a crate, a trailer, even a large boulder. It didn't explode or burn. It simply ceased to be, leaving bare dirt behind. Daniel's skin prickled. We need to move. Now. The statue began walking toward the open road, its steps slow but steady. They have seen us. They will follow. But if we reach the sanctuary before they close the sky completely, there may be time. A low hum rose from above, growing deeper and sharper until it felt like it was inside Daniel's skull. He glanced up and saw smaller shapes dropping from the nearest ship. At first, they looked like falling shards of metal, but when they landed, they unfolded into spindly machines with too many legs. Their bodies shimmered like liquid silver. The machines began to move, fast. Daniel sprinted after the statue, his boots pounding the dirt road. The machines flowed over the ground, skittering with impossible speed, their limbs bending in ways no living thing should. One leapt onto an abandoned truck, its metal legs slicing through the roof like paper. A beam shot from its body, sweeping over the vehicle. The truck flickered once and vanished. Daniel's breath came in ragged gasps. They're erasing everything they touch. Yes, the statue said, not slowing. And they will not stop until nothing of your world remains. They reached the edge of the camp where an old armored jeep was parked. Daniel jumped into the driver's seat and twisted the key. The engine coughed, then roared to life. The statue crouched unnaturally to fit into the back, its glowing eyes scanning the sky. Daniel slammed the accelerator, the jeep lurching forward. The machines gave chase, their bodies blurring with speed. He swerved hard to avoid one that landed in front of them, feeling the heat of its beam pass just behind the jeep. A sharp crack split the air, and Daniel looked up. Another ship was emerging from a new tier in the sky, larger than the others. Its underside was covered in jagged spines that pulsed with faint light. The sight made his stomach turn. "What are those things on the bottom?" he asked. "Harvesters," the statue replied. "They take what is left of a world's memory and feed it to the scourge." The road ahead twisted into the dark hills. Daniel pushed the jeep harder, the tires spitting gravel. Behind them, the silver machines bounded forward, climbing over rocks and wreckage with inhuman grace. One landed close enough that Daniel could see its surface ripple like water as if it wasn't solid at all. The statue leaned forward, placing one heavy hand on the jeep's roof. A sudden pulse of silver light erupted from its palm. The machine nearest to them convulsed, its form distorting, and then it collapsed into a puddle of molten metal that quickly cooled into a dull lump. Daniel shot a quick glance in the mirror. "You can fight them?" "For a time," the statue said. "But my strength was meant for sealing, not for war." The jeep bounced over a rise, and the sanctuary's mountains came into view in the distance, dark silhouettes against the fractured sky. The cracks above them had spread wider, letting more pale light bleed into the world. The stars were vanishing one by one. Suddenly, a shadow fell over the jeep. Daniel looked up and saw one of the smaller ships descending directly above them, its spines opening like the jaws of a beast. A beam of pale light began to form between them. The statue's voice sharpened. "Drive into the forest. Now." Daniel swerved off the road, the jeep crashing through low branches and bouncing over uneven ground. The beam missed them by inches, striking the road they just left. The ground there blinked out of existence, leaving a perfect, smooth hole as if the road had never been built. Branches scraped across the windshield, but Daniel kept going, aiming for the darker parts of the woods. The statue remained still, watching the ships above. "They will not stop," it said quietly. "The more you run, the more they will follow." "Then why are we running?" Daniel snapped. "Because the mountains are not just stone," the statue replied. "They are the bones of the first war against the scourge. What is buried there can slow them and maybe give you a chance to fix what you have done. Daniel gritted his teeth, eyes locked on the winding path ahead. He didn't know if he could fix anything. But the sight of the cracks in the sky growing larger behind them told him one thing. If they didn't try, there would soon be nothing left to save. The forest grew darker as Daniel pushed the Jeep deeper between the trees. Branches slapped against the sides, and the headlights cut narrow beams through the thick mist that had begun to settle. Behind them, the pale glow from the cracks in the sky still bled through the canopy, making the shadows stretch unnaturally long. The statue sat in the back, unmoving, its glowing eyes the only steady light inside the vehicle. "They will not enter this forest easily," it said. "The ground here remembers what happened long ago." Daniel gripped the wheel tighter. "You mean the first war you keep talking about?" "Yes," the statue replied. "When the scourge first came, the last stand was fought here. The blood of that battle still whispers in the roots of these trees." The Jeep jolted over a fallen log, and Daniel had to slow. The forest floor was uneven, the ground riddled with shallow pits and half-buried stone fragments. He glanced at one of them as they passed. It looked like part of a massive skull, the size of a car, with smooth curves and deep cracks. A faint hum made the hairs on his neck rise. He turned his head and saw a flicker of movement between the trees, something silver, gliding low to the ground. "They followed us," he muttered. The statue's head turned sharply. "Keep driving. Do not stop for anything you see." The hum grew louder, joined by faint clicks. Daniel caught glimpses of the silver shapes moving with unnatural grace. They didn't crash through the forest like the Jeep. They slipped through it, weaving between trunks like they were part of the shadows. A sudden flash lit the woods. One of the silver machines lunged toward the Jeep from the side. Daniel swerved, and the thing slammed into a tree, cutting a deep groove into the bark before melting back into the darkness. "They're testing us," the statue said. "They want to force you to slow down." Daniel's jaw tightened. Then they're out of luck. The path narrowed, forcing him to weave between massive roots that rose from the ground like twisted walls. The silver flickers kept pace, moving just beyond the edge of the headlights. Every so often, Daniel thought he saw a face in the metal, shifting, almost human, before melting away again. The forest suddenly opened into a wide, fog-filled clearing. At its center stood a stone arch, half buried in moss and vines. Symbols covered its surface, glowing faintly in the mist. The statue leaned forward, its voice lower. "We are close. That arch marks the beginning of the sanctuary's path." Daniel drove toward it, the fog curling away from the Jeep's headlights. But before they reached it, a silver machine dropped from the trees directly in front of them. Daniel slammed the brakes, the Jeep skidding to a stop only feet away. The machine stood taller than the others, its body more solid, its surface marked with dark cracks that pulsed faintly. Its many legs unfolded like blades. The statue climbed out of the Jeep without hesitation. "Stay here," it said. Daniel opened his mouth to argue, but the forest around them suddenly filled with sound, low, metallic growls from every direction. More silver shapes emerged from the mist, encircling the clearing. The tall machine moved first, darting forward with incredible speed. The statue caught its strike with one hand, the clash sending a shockwave through the clearing. The ground beneath them cracked, and the air rippled as if the fight was bending reality itself. The smaller machines rushed in, but the statue's glowing eyes flared, and a pulse of silver light burst from its body. The machines staggered, their forms rippling and distorting, but they didn't fall. Daniel gritted his teeth. If the statue was holding them back, he had to move. He slammed the Jeep into gear and drove toward the arch. The moment the front tires touched the moss-covered stone base, the symbols on the arch flared brighter, and a deep rumble shook the ground. The silver machines hissed, their bodies twitching like they were in pain. The tall one turned toward Daniel, but the statue seized it by the neck and slammed it into the ground. "Go!" it shouted. Daniel floored the accelerator, driving under the arch. The air changed instantly. It felt thicker, charged with static. The mist deepened, and the sounds of the fight behind him grew faint. He slowed only when the path narrowed again. The forest here was quieter, the light from the sky dimmed. Strange shapes jutted from the ground, broken weapons, shattered armor, and bones so large they couldn't have come from anything human. The statue emerged from the mist moments later, walking with steady steps. There were cracks in its metallic skin now, glowing faintly. "They will not cross the arch easily," it said. "For a short time, we are safe." Daniel looked at it, still gripping the wheel. "Short time isn't enough. You said there's something here that can slow them. Where is it?" The statue turned its glowing eyes toward the heart of the forest. "Deep beneath the mountain, in the chamber where the first seal was made. That is where your world's last hope sleeps." Somewhere far above, the cracks in the sky widened again. Even here, Daniel could feel it. Their time was running out. The path narrowed into a tunnel of twisted roots and jagged stone. Daniel drove slowly now, the jeep's tires crunching over fragments of old armor and cracked bones. The air was colder here, heavy with a strange metallic taste. Somewhere ahead, water dripped in a steady rhythm, echoing through the silence. The statue walked ahead of the jeep, moving with a slow but certain pace. Its glowing eyes cut through the darkness like twin beacons. Daniel followed, gripping the steering wheel tightly. Every shadow seemed alive. "How much farther?" he asked. "Far enough that even the scourge's reach fades," the statue replied. "But not far enough to stop them forever. What we seek lies deeper, inside the mountain itself." The tunnel opened into a vast cavern, so wide the jeep's headlights couldn't touch the far walls. Enormous stone pillars rose from the ground to the ceiling, carved with alien symbols. The air shimmered faintly, as if they had stepped into a place between worlds. Daniel stopped the jeep and climbed out, his boots crunching on the gravel floor. "This doesn't look like a sanctuary. It looks like a tomb." The statue turned its head toward him. "It is both." From the shadows at the edge of the cavern, shapes began to move. Tall, thin figures wrapped in tattered cloaks. Their faces were hidden under smooth oval masks, and their steps made no sound. Daniel instinctively reached for the pistol at his side. "They are the keepers," the statue said calmly. "Guardians of the seal. Do not raise your weapon unless you wish to die here." The cloaked figures stopped a few meters away. One stepped forward, its mask tilting as if studying Daniel. When it spoke, its voice was like wind through a hollow cave. "Why have you brought a living trigger into this place?" Daniel's stomach tightened. The word sounded heavier now that someone else had said it. "The scourge have awakened," the statue replied. "The seal was broken before its time. He is bound to it, and to them." The keepers murmured in low, echoing tones. Daniel couldn't understand the words, but the sound made his skin crawl. Finally, the one in front spoke again. "Then the chamber must be opened." Without another word, the keepers turned and began walking toward the far side of the cavern. Daniel and the statue followed. The ground sloped downward, the air growing colder with each step. Soon, the walls began to glow faintly with lines of alien script, pulsing in time with some distant heartbeat. They reached a massive door carved directly into the mountain's stone. Its surface was smooth and black, with no visible hinges or handles. In the center, a handprint was carved into the rock, too large for any human. The statue placed its hand against it. Light spread from the contact, crawling across the surface like cracks in glass. A deep rumble shook the ground, and slowly the door slid open to reveal a narrow passage filled with blinding white light. Daniel shielded his eyes and stepped through. The passage led to a round chamber, its walls covered in intricate carvings that spiraled toward the center. There, on a raised platform, stood a strange device, a sphere of metal suspended in midair, rotating slowly. Inside it, shapes of light shifted and swirled, almost like clouds. "This is it?" Daniel asked. "This is the memory core," the statue said. "It holds the history of your world. If it remains whole, the scourge cannot erase you completely, but it is weakening." Daniel stepped closer, feeling the hum of the device in his bones. "So, we protect it?" The statue's gaze stayed fixed on the core. "No, you must carry it to the heart of silence, in the ruins of the scourge's own world. Only there can it be sealed again." Daniel turned to face it. "That's suicide. You said they can sense me anywhere." "They can," the statue said, "which is why you, and only you, can draw them away long enough to reach it." Before Daniel could answer, a loud crack echoed through the chamber. The ground shivered. One of the keepers rushed in, its cloak whipping around its thin frame. "They have found the arch," it said in that hollow voice. "The enemy is breaking through." Daniel's pulse jumped. "They're here already?" "Yes," the keeper replied. and they will not stop. The statue stepped forward, placing its massive hand on Daniel's shoulder. You must decide now. If we leave, we can still reach the mountain's far side and escape into the old paths. If we stay, they will corner us here, and the core will be lost. Daniel looked back at the swirling sphere, the glow reflecting in his eyes. It wasn't just a machine. It felt alive, humming with the weight of every moment humanity had ever lived. Losing it would mean more than death. It would mean never having existed at all. The rumble grew louder. Dust fell from the ceiling. Somewhere beyond the door, a faint silver light began to seep into the dark. Daniel clenched his fists. Then we move, now. The statue lifted the memory core as if it weighed nothing, the swirling light inside flaring brighter. The keepers parted, clearing the path back toward the cavern. The air was sharp now, filled with the distant metallic hum of the scourge drawing closer. As they stepped out of the chamber, Daniel glanced back once. The carvings on the walls seemed to shift in the flickering light, almost like they were watching him go. The cavern echoed with hurried footsteps as Daniel, the statue, and the keepers moved toward the exit. The memory core floated above the statue's palm, its swirling light growing brighter with each passing second. The glow lit their path, throwing shifting shadows across the stone pillars. The rumble from outside grew into a constant vibration under their feet. Every few moments, a sharp crack split the air, followed by a distant hum that sent chills down Daniel's spine. The scourge were close, too close. They reached the great stone arch at the cavern's mouth, but the air beyond was no longer still. The mist outside glowed faintly silver, and strange shapes flickered within it. Daniel knew without being told, they were here. The leading keeper raised one long, thin hand. We will slow them. Go. 3 of the cloaked figures stepped forward, positioning themselves in front of the arch. The strange symbols on their masks flared to life, pulsing with the same rhythm as the carvings on the cavern walls. Daniel hesitated, looking at them. Will they survive? The statue didn't slow its pace. Their task is not survival. It is delay. Daniel swallowed hard and followed, stepping through the arch into the cold mist. The forest outside was different now. The silver glow was everywhere, bleeding into the trees, making them look ghostly and half-faded. The ground felt softer underfoot, almost insubstantial, as if the world itself was thinning. A sound like tearing cloth filled the air. From the fog ahead, the first scourge drones emerged. Sleek, spidery machines with limbs like blades. Their bodies rippled like liquid metal, reflecting the silver light in warped patterns. Daniel reached for his pistol, but the statue stepped in front of him. With a single motion, it sent out a pulse of light from its glowing eyes. The nearest drones convulsed, their shapes distorting into jagged shards before melting into the ground. They will send more, the statue said. Run. They pushed forward, weaving through twisted trees and crumbling ruins half buried in moss. Every shadow seemed to move. More drones appeared, climbing down from branches or slipping out of the fog, their limbs clicking in a steady hunting rhythm. The statue fought as they moved, its heavy strikes breaking the drones apart, but for each one that fell, 2 more appeared. Daniel fired his pistol at the ones that slipped past the statue, the sharp cracks of gunfire echoing through the mist. The memory core pulsed faster, the swirling patterns inside it moving like a storm. Daniel noticed that each time a drone got too close to it, the machine hesitated, its form flickering. They don't like the core, he said, ducking under a low branch. They fear it, the statue replied. It is the one thing that can undo them. A sudden high-pitched screech cut through the forest. The ground trembled, and from the silver haze ahead, a much larger shape emerged. It was twice the size of the others, its body a mass of shifting metal blades, its eyes glowing with cold, white light. The statue stopped walking. Go around, it said. Daniel's pulse jumped. What about you? I will hold it. Before Daniel could argue, the statue charged forward, slamming into the massive drone with a force that shook the ground. The 2 collided in a blur of light and metal, their strikes sending shockwaves through the air. Daniel didn't wait. He sprinted through the trees, clutching his pistol, glancing back only once to see flashes of light from the fight. He ran until his lungs burned, the mist thinning just enough to reveal a narrow ravine ahead. A broken stone bridge spanned it, its surface cracked and overgrown with vines. On the far side, the ground sloped upward toward the darker silhouette of the mountains. Daniel crossed the bridge quickly, but halfway across, the sound of metal scraping stone rang out. A drone crawled over the side, its bladed limbs clanging against the old masonry. Daniel fired twice, the bullets sparking off its shifting surface. The drone lunged. He dove to the side, rolling across the cracked stone as the machine slammed into the bridge, breaking a large chunk away. The structure groaned under the weight. Daniel scrambled to his feet and fired again, this time hitting one of the drone's glowing joints. It staggered, and he kicked it hard, sending it tumbling into the ravine below. The bridge creaked ominously. Daniel ran the last few steps and leapt onto solid ground just as part of the bridge collapsed into the darkness. He didn't stop moving until he reached the tree line on the far side. A heavy thud made him turn. The statue emerged from the mist, moving slower now, with deep cracks glowing across its metallic frame. It still carried the memory core, though its light had dimmed slightly. "You're hurt," Daniel said. "It is nothing," the statue replied, though its voice had grown heavier. "We are close to the old paths. Once we reach them, the scourge will have to split their forces to follow." Another distant screech echoed through the forest. Daniel glanced back toward the bridge, but the mist had already swallowed it. He knew the enemy wasn't far behind. They moved together toward the mountains, the air growing colder with each step. The core pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat that was slowing. Daniel could feel the weight of time pressing on them, every second pulling the scourge closer. Somewhere high above, the cracks in the sky widened again, spilling more of that silver light into the dying world. The mountain path twisted upward, narrow and uneven, with jagged rocks jutting out like broken teeth. The wind howled through the gaps, carrying a faint metallic hum that told Daniel the scourge were still closing in. The statue moved ahead, the memory core floating above its hand, glowing weaker with every step. Daniel's boots slipped on loose gravel, but he kept going. "How much farther to these old paths?" "Not far," the statue said, its voice slower now. "But we must hurry. The core is fading." The higher they climbed, the more the air seemed to shimmer. The mountains loomed dark against the fractured sky, and the cracks above had widened so far that whole sections of space looked missing, replaced by swirling silver light. Daniel felt like the world was bleeding away in pieces. They reached a ridge where the path split in two. One side led up toward a narrow cliffside trail, the other into a deep cleft between the rocks. The statue stopped, scanning both ways. "They will expect us to take the high trail," it said. "We go into the cleft." The passage was so narrow, Daniel had to turn sideways to squeeze through. The walls were cold and damp, covered in strange markings carved into the stone. They glowed faintly as they passed, matching the fading pulse of the core. The cleft opened into a hidden valley, walled in by steep cliffs. At its center, an enormous stone gate stood half buried in earth and vines. Its surface was marked with spiraling runes, and the air around it felt charged, like the moment before a lightning strike. "This is the entrance to the old paths," the statue said. "Beyond it, the scourge will have difficulty following, but they will still try." Daniel stepped closer to the gate, his hand brushing over the cold stone. "How do we open it?" The statue placed the memory core into a hollow at the gate's center. The runes flared to life, a deep vibration rolling through the ground. The gate began to shift, the stone folding in on itself in ways that seemed impossible. Slowly, a dark passage appeared beyond. Before they could step inside, a sharp screech split the air. Daniel turned and saw silver shapes emerging from the cleft, dozens of drones crawling over the rocks like insects. Their limbs glinted in the fading light, eyes burning white. "They're here!" Daniel shouted. The statue pulled the core from the gate and placed it back in its palm. "Go inside," it said. Daniel shook his head. "Not without you." "You must," the statue said, stepping forward to face the advancing machines. "The core must reach the heart of silence, or your world will vanish. I will hold them here." The first drones leapt forward. The statue met them head-on, striking with a speed that belied its massive frame. Light flared with every impact, shards of silver scattering into the air. But more drones kept coming, swarming over their fallen like an unstoppable tide. Daniel backed toward the gate, torn between running and helping. His pistol felt useless against so many, but the thought of leaving the statue alone twisted his gut. One drone broke past the statue, its blade-like limbs slicing through the air toward Daniel. He fired twice, the shots striking its joints. It staggered, but kept coming until the statue's hand slammed into it, crushing it into the ground. The statue glanced back. Go! Daniel forced himself to turn and run into the passage. The air inside was cooler, the walls lined with more glowing runes that pulsed faintly as he passed. The tunnel curved, and soon the sounds of battle behind him began to fade. But before they were gone completely, he heard one last heavy crash and a burst of light that lit the passage walls. Then, silence. Daniel slowed, his chest tight. Part of him wanted to turn back, but the weight of the core's importance kept him moving. The passage opened into a wide chamber carved from the mountain's heart. At its center was a platform of black stone, and above it hung a second sphere, larger than the core, dark and unmoving. He knew without being told, this was the heart of silence. The core in his hands pulsed faster, its glow spilling over the black sphere. Daniel stepped onto the platform, feeling the air grow heavy, almost like it was holding its breath. He hesitated. "If I do this," he whispered, "I don't come back, do I?" The statue's voice echoed in his mind, though he knew it couldn't truly be there. "Your name will be lost, but your choice will echo forever." Daniel closed his eyes and placed the core against the heart of silence. Light erupted, filling the chamber, racing through the runes on the walls. The glow surged upward, out through the mountains, spilling into the cracks in the sky. Daniel felt a pull, not physical, but deep, like his very existence was being unwoven. Memories blurred, faces slipped away, even his own name faded. Far above, the silver cracks began to close. The scourge ships froze in place, their shapes flickering before dissolving into nothing. The silver light drained from the world, leaving only the deep, natural dark of night. When it was over, the chamber was still. The heart of silence was dark again, the core gone. On the mountain path outside, the world was whole. People in distant cities went about their lives, unaware of how close they had come to being erased. No one remembered the scourge. No one remembered the man who had carried the core. Only the statue remained, standing silent at the hidden valley's gate, its glowing eyes dim, but its lips curved in the faintest smile.